everybody, and welcome to GenFriends. I'm your host, Cheri Hudson Passey from Carolina Girl Genealogy, and with me is this very fabulous panel. We have Bernice Bennett from Genealogists. Hi, Bernice.
Hello.
So glad you're here with us tonight. We've got Dan Earl, a family history guy. Hey, Dan.
Hello.
Good to have you as always. We also have Laura Hedgecock, Treasure Chest of Memories. Hey, Laura.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. Glad that you're here. And then last but not least, we've got Melissa Barker, our archive ladies in the house. Hi, Melissa.
Hello. So glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here too because, we were thinking about what we needed to talk about and thinking about Christmas and traditions. And Melissa came up with a brilliant idea of talking about traditional foods that we eat around the holidays. And we thought how fun that would be to share some of our traditional meals, and we'll put the recipes on the blog post that always comes out in addition that contains the link to GenFriends. So I'm excited to hear because I've heard from some of you what you're going to share, and I'm hungry. Thinking about the things that you're going to share. I am going to start off and share mine so that I can be quiet and listen to you guys for the rest of the time. So the one that I wanted to share comes from my mom, and I don't know, and I've asked her. She says, I remember having this when I was a kid. It may just be a recipe she got from a friend. I don't know. But they're sweet potatoes, but they're just not sweet potatoes. It's called sweet potato souffle. And the reason that I chose this was because when I was about maybe 9 or 10 years old, and I've got a picture of my mom sitting in front of this Christmas tree, and I'll post that with the recipe. My brother and I had this little tape recorder, and we were asking her, what are we having for dinner? We were trying to document Christmas. And my mom, who's from South Carolina, says on this tape, and these old tapes made things sound these southern accents worse than they were, but she said, and we're having sweet potato souffle. It was really drawn out, that souffle. And so we tease her all the time. What are we having, Mom? Are we having sweet potato souffle? And she just, So anyway, that's the one that I wanted to share because that just brings back so many memories, and it's just really, really good. And it's passed down that my daughters split up. We all split up the recipe, what we're cooking. And so my second oldest daughter, that's her thing that she makes. She makes that in the pumpkin pie. So that's her thing every year to make. So Laura.
Now, the souffle part, is that the marshmallows? Because that was our South Carolina souffle.
Yeah, it's got marshmallows on the top.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Yep, it's got sugar and butter and vanilla and eggs, and you whip it all up. So it's, it's puffy. That's why it's a souffle. So it's not just your mashed sweet potatoes with everything in it. So, dumped in it. It rises up. And so it's a souffle. Anyway, but it's very good. And it's one of those things that you can't have dinner. It's not dinner. It's not Christmas or Thanksgiving dinner unless you have it. And I've gotten into the habit, as my children have gotten married, to say to the new spouse, is there any recipe that makes the holiday meal the meal for you? And if so, send the recipe and we'll make it. Because, and heaven help you if you change the recipe. If everybody's used to making something a certain way and you put crackers instead of stuffing, or you put, you change something, everybody gets really mad, right? So we try to do that. Who'd like to go next and share a recipe? Bernice.
Okay, so my recipe is for gumbo. I am from New Orleans, folks. And so even though I'm not in Louisiana, we still have gumbo for the holidays. Now, this is really a year-round dish.
Right.
But it's special when it's Christmas and it's Thanksgiving and folks can line up with their bowls to put in all the delicious ingredients. So with my gumbo, the first most important thing is the roux. And I do it from scratch, and that's flour and butter, or you could use the oil, but it's the consistency and what it looks like, and you have to just stir and stir and stir until it gets to be the right color. So you don't want it to look creamy white. You want it to look like a copper penny or like a little chocolate. Okay.
Okay.
But you must continuously stir, because if you burn it, then you have to throw that out and start all over again. Okay, so the roux, then the Holy Trinity. This consists of onions, celery, and bell peppers. And you want to, cut that down and put it all in a pot with the roux and saute it. I use a chicken broth, and I use shrimp stock, which means that after I've peeled the shrimp, I will boil. Oh, this is good, huh?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so the other ingredients I add would be crab, shrimp. Now I add oyster and andouille sausage. Sometimes I will put chicken wings, and may add smoked sausage in addition to the andouille. Yeah, and so it's really good. Now, no corn, no beef. That's a no-no.
Okay.
And because it's a seafood gumbo, I don't put okra, because that's another kind of gumbo with I use Creole seasoning. And then at the very, very end, I will add filet. It's a filet powder, and it's served over rice.
Wow.
Preparation time takes a while.
Yeah.
Chop up everything. So what I try to do the night before is to really cut up everything and have it ready for the next day. The gumbo is best the day after you cook it, because it gives all of the seasonings a chance to really kind of just soak up all the different flavors. And it's served hot over rice.
Yes, that sounds so good. Now that filet seasoning, can you buy that anywhere in any grocery store, or do you have to special order it, or?
Well, I buy it in the grocery store.
Okay.
But I do buy Zatarain.
Okay.
We have French bread.
Well, oh my gosh, that sounds so good. And I was laughing when you said, you don't live in Louisiana anymore, but you have it. Because we're a military family, and so we've had it in England and Bermuda, all over the place, and we still have those traditional meals. And so it wasn't a meal, no matter where we lived, unless we had these traditional things. So, oh, that sounds so good. I cannot wait to see the recipe for that, and I'm gonna try it. And the thing is, I've got a family that they're not big seafood eaters, so I will make it, and I will get to eat it all.
Well, sometimes I have to make 2 pots, because I have my people who are allergic to seafood. So I make a separate pot for them.
Oh, okay.
Everything minus.
I gotcha. Yeah, I'm not doing that for them. They either eat it or it'll just be my pot. I'll stick some in the freezer. Sounds really good. This is my Christmas present to me if you're not going to eat it. So, thank you. That sounds wonderful. That sounds wonderful. Who'd like to go next? This is so exciting. I'm getting really hungry. My stomach is grumbling. Okay.
And I'm going to share my screen if that's okay.
Fabulous. Yeah.
What I'm going to share about is it's my husband's family who are from the South. And I don't know if this is a Southern thing. Someone may come along and say, no, we do this up north too. But this is called potato candy, old-fashioned potato candy. And yes, it's made with potato. So this is what it looks like.
Anything made with potatoes is going to be good.
Yes. And so I just Googled and found a recipe. And it only has 3 ingredients. It only has 3 ingredients. It has 1 small russet potato, 6 to 8 cups of powdered sugar, and 2/3 cup of peanut butter. So you cook your potato, and then you mash your potato up. You put in the powdered sugar, and then you take the dough. It's almost like a sugar cookie dough. And I don't know if it shows it down here or not, but you roll it out like a sugar cookie.
Okay.
And then once you roll it out, You spread your peanut butter on it. I think it's up here. And then you roll it up kind of like a cinnamon roll.
I gotcha. Yeah.
And then you cut it in
Then you
pieces.
chop
And you
it,
can
so
leave
like a roll.
you can leave the roll in the refrigerator. And then as you want a few pieces, you can cut off a few pieces. But this is
as I would want a few pieces.
yeah.
I just chop the whole thing in half and just
I have a sweet tooth, but this is
Me
really
too.
sweet.
That
Like,
looks
really
great.
sweet. But no, this is something that my husband's family has every
Huh.
single year, and we even made some I think last year and sent it to his mother in Texas
Oh,
because she was
wow.
wanting some. But people are always amazed because it is actually made with potato.
Potato. Huh.
So yeah,
Gonna have
it's
to try
very
that.
easy to make.
Yeah. Dan.
So a friend of ours makes this up here, and I'll tell you what I tell him, because it seems like of the 3 ingredients listed, that potato is the smallest ingredient, yet potato is the thing that's listed in front of candy. If you look, it's like the smallest amount of potato that you could conceivably mash, and then 8 cups of powdered sugar, and then some peanut butter. Like,
you would not
it's
think
not.
all of that powdered sugar would not be incorporated into the mashed potato or that one little potato, but it does. Because when I first made it, I thought there is no way all this powdered sugar is going to mix into this potato, but it does.
Right.
So
They have to
it's
say small russet potato because an eensy weensy amount of potato doesn't sound too recipe like, like like the smallest conceivable portion of the smallest spoon you can find in your home, like a baby spoon, and use that much potato and the rest of it's sugar.
Sugar and peanut butter. That's too
But it is good. That's the thing. Like you would taste it, and
good.
you're like, there's, it just, it's like eating pure sugar because essentially that's what you're eating.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. But it's a real traditional food for my husband's family. And I do a presentation about dragging genealogy information out of your family members. And one of the things that I always encourage genealogists to do is to use food, because food really brings out the memories. And I'm talking about, these are those family members that look at you and go, I don't remember anything, or I don't want to talk about anything, or I don't remember nothing. If you make some of these foods that they remember from their childhood, and put them out there, once they start eating it and you start talking to them about it, I guarantee you they're going to start talking more and more about it, because it will bring back memories, and then they'll start talking about other family things. And so food is a great thing to get your family members to start talking.
Sure.
That's so true. I had a girl do a guest post for my blog, and she talked about Italian Easter traditional foods, and she was talking about learning the recipes elbow to elbow. And I just love that whole thing about, because cooking for her family was genealogy. It was doing family history. You didn't get it down from a recipe card.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. My grandmother used to cook like that, and I'd say, how do you make this? And then my mom is a lot like that too. She has to stop and think, well, I think I put this in it and I put this in it. And she'll never make the same thing twice the same way. And so you're like, Mom, how am I supposed to do this if you don't even remember how you did it and you just throw things in a pot? So, but yeah, I agree with Laura. That is genealogy. Standing there, watching them cook, listening to their stories, because that and like Melissa said, it does help them start to tell stories.
Exactly. Even stuff that they don't think they can remember.
Right.
You have that food there, or if you just start talking about recipes or stuff. Yeah, smell is a great way to bring back memories. And stuff.
Sure. I mean, think about smelling. Think about smelling like something simple like a crayon. What does that do? All of a sudden, you're back in school and you're, or Play-Doh. Yeah.
You're setting off my inner neuroscience geek, but all our senses except our sense of smells go to the cerebral cortex.
Okay.
Our sense of smell goes directly into our limbic system. So it's very related to emotions and those emotional memories.
Well, think about it. It's about emotions, and think about when you're eating some of that comfort food or some of that family food, and how it makes you feel.
Oh yeah.
And I imagine Bernice, when her family eats that gumbo, they just have memories on top of memories because she's been making it so long.
As soon as they walk in her kitchen,
and smell it.
As you walk into the house, that's the first thing they say.
Yeah. my memories of walking into my grandmother's house are collard greens, you know.
Oh yeah, they smell so good.
Yeah, just ham, just all that kind of stuff. Just, you know, cooking on the stove, and you know, she can never make a vegetable without throwing a ham hock in it, and you know,
Or
so
bacon
that,
grease.
anything like that. And so that's what her house smelled, cornbread, you know,
Oh,
all
yeah.
those kind of things. And so
Y'all are making me hungry now.
I know, that's what I've been sitting here thinking.
Well, wait till Dan's through with us.
I know.
Make me hungry.
Who'd like to go next?
Dan, you want to go?
Sure, I'll go. So when my wife and I got married, it was definitely a merging of different traditions. So her family was very, very Southern, very Protestant. Her grandmother grew up in Alabama. So, and the first thing her grandmother did when she moved to Arizona was plant pecan trees.
Oh, of course.
In her backyard, and so she could have fresh stuff, you know. And so and then my family's very Northern Catholics, and so we had lots of different, but some similar traditions. And so when we got married, my mom compiled a recipe book, and like just photocopied the recipe. So some of them are in her handwriting, some of them are in my grandmother's handwriting, some of them are my great grandmother's handwriting, and we've got this cookbook, this family cookbook. And so it was our first Christmas kind of on our own, right? When we moved back here to Michigan, and both of our families were still out west. And I was like, well, you know, I was like, well, I guess we're going to have to make the birthday cake. And because in one of my family's traditions is we always have a very specific kind of cake for Jesus's birthday cake, because that's what we're celebrating, right?
Ah, yes.
So we do not put 2020 candles on the cake, because that's a fire hazard. But we don't do the are you one, are you two, because it takes too long. And so we make a cake, and it's a very specific cake, and it's my grandmother's recipe, that involves yeast, and it's a very old cake recipe. It's not, and my wife's thinking, oh, cake, yeah, I just go to the store, buy a couple boxes and some tubs of frosting, and that's a cake, right? And so she's sitting there scratching.
And you're like, that's blasphemy, no.
Right. I mean, my wife's, bless her heart, is looking at this recipe, trying to figure it out, and she's like, so I have to get, you know, dry active yeast. I've got to, you know, all these ingredients, and I've got to chop the apples. I've got to have raisins. She's like, what are currants? You know, and like just going through, like trying to figure out what all this stuff is. And she's like, can't we just do something different? And I was like, and I turned into Tevye from tradition. Yes. No, we can't. This is what we've always done and will do forever, right? And it's not Christmas unless we have that. And so she did it the first year, but I saw how much work she put into it. And it's sort of like potato candy. The most frequent ingredient is sugar. It goes into, you know, just about every component of this. And she's like, it's too sweet. I was like, really? You're trying to tell Jesus his birthday cake's too sweet? Like, you know, like, come on. It's his birthday.
What would Jesus say?
Is he not sweet, right? Like, don't we need to have like a sweet birthday cake for him? And so eventually we settled on a different cake recipe that my grandmother had that was still sweet, but not quite as sweet, and doesn't have a cream cheese frosting on it. And so we've compromised on the tradition a little bit. And this year we're compromising again, and I'm making my carrot cake recipe for the birthday cake, because that's even less sweet. So somehow it's getting less and less sweet, which I'm not a fan of. And at some point there's going to be a reckoning, and we're going to have to go back to the old cake recipe. And I'm going to make sure that my daughters-in-law get that cake recipe, and like, no, like, you start doing this, and make sure that they make it, because, you know, it's tradition.
It's tradition.
Right? We have to have it, right?
At least give them the choice, you know, this is the recipe,
exactly.
You know, give them the option to do it.
And they can come do the elbow to elbow learning, you know, of my wife sitting in the living room drinking, you know, some eggnog, and while I teach them how to make the cake, because if it's going to be taught, it's going to be me.
That's the only way she can cope with you.
Right. Oh, and don't even get me started on eggnog. So that's another point of contention in our home. That my wife drinks it and brings that vile liquid into our home.
Oh no, I love eggnog.
What's wrong with eggnog?
Stores it in my refrigerator, and and just it coats your glass. Like, why would you like anyway, I've got some very colorful terms for it that we
I
this is a
love
family
eggnog.
show.
That's right. I happen to love eggnog.
I
so,
do too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh.
I found me some
Oh.
almond milk eggnog the other day, so it's not quite as fatty. And I tasted it and I was like, hey, I'll go back to regular eggnog.
You know how you can tell if eggnog goes bad?
Uh-oh.
You can't.
It smells good.
Okay, all you eggnog people out there, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, direct your complaints
Yes, to
directly to
Dan.
Dan.
Dan,
Send those
not-
to Dan at
Not
Dan
to us.
at.
Oh, that's too funny. All right, Laura, what you got for us?
Well, I decided to talk about, well, I come from the South, so my recipes we didn't do seafood, but a lot of the typical things. We had sweet potato souffle, although it had a little bit of pineapple and oranges in it.
Oh,
And
I'm like, ugh, that's not sweet potato souffle. See, this is what we do, right? When we hear other people's recipes.
and we'd have,
I'm sure it's
I
delicious.
did not eat it. It was disgusting.
Oh.
I'm sorry to all my cousins who loved it, but we would always have congealed salad, which is
Gosh, yeah.
Jello with a bunch of stuff thrown in it and set up to congeal in a bunt pan. So what I decided to talk about is a new tradition, because my husband and I lived in Germany I lived there several times, but the longest time was 3.5 years. And the first Christmas, Thanksgiving, it was hard.
Mm-hmm.
And on New Year's Eve, a German family took us in, and they shared their New Year's Eve tradition, and it's become ours. And I'm going to share my screen because it involves what they call a raclette grill. And a raclette grill, see how it has these little pans?
Oh, mm-hmm.
You have little pans and they go under a heating element. And then the top of this thing is a grill. So what you do is you boil potatoes. So that's your side. And then you cut up all these wonderful cold cuts and cheeses and peppers and mushrooms and onions and what have you. And you grill the things that you like on the top of the thing. And you take your little pan. I'm going to stop sharing now because I have to talk with my hands. You take your little pan and you put whatever you've grilled or not grilled, and you can have herbs and stuff, and you put them in your little pan and you grill it till the cheese melts, and you use raclette cheese as a type of cheese.
Okay.
And then you throw it over your smashed potatoes, and it's delicious.
Oh, that sounds really good.
But you eat these small quantities over a long time. Everybody's getting the grill, you're trying this, you're getting this idea, and it's just a nice hangout together. It's not my kids, some holiday meals, you cook for 5 hours, 12 minutes later, they are done.
Yes.
You're like, what? So everybody sits around, and it's kind of cool. Both my boys, they love it. And it's kind of nice to start your own tradition when things are different and you can't have your normal tradition.
True.
And you still find something wonderful that you can pass on.
Sure. Oh, I love that idea. I
Yeah.
love that idea.
And you can get it at, what is this, Crate and Barrel for a mere $130, and it ships free.
You really got to
Laura's
love
sending it to everybody.
everybody.
Yeah.
You get one, and you get one.
Am I on the Ellen DeGeneres show now?
Oprah.
Nice commercial, Laura.
Oh gosh, that's too funny. That
Reminds me a lot of a hibachi.
Yeah, it does. Look
Yeah.
like, yeah.
But I did not, my grandmother cooked a few things, good typical Southern foods, nothing like yeast cakes and all that. But the other thing I got from my mom is, I think we're all special occasion cooks. We're not the menu planning. There's a great meal on the table every night. Fish sticks, it's great.
Hey, have you ever had fish sticks tacos? Those are so good.
No, but tonight my husband took leftover tikka masala, which is an Indian food, mixed it with rice, and we put cheese on it and made Indian tacos.
There you go. That
There you
sounds
go.
great.
Well, you're talking about new traditions. Several years ago, my husband and I decided that by the time we got through Thanksgiving and leftovers and everything, by the time Christmas got here, we didn't want any more turkey or ham or dressing or anything. So for the last, I would say 10 years now, I've been making Italian manicotti.
Oh, huh.
And so I make it
That
fresh,
sounds
homemade,
good.
and we love it. And so it's a great different something other than the traditional,
Sure.
Christmas dinner.
Sure. Last
Yeah.
year at Christmas, my oldest daughter has started wanting to have dinner at her house because she's got lots of little kids and they've got a big playroom. And so when everybody comes over and all the kids come over, they can just go to the playroom and leave us, the rest of us adults, alone, right? They can just be killing each other up there and we can have our conversations. So we did that, and then we went to for Thanksgiving, and then we went to my second daughter's house for Christmas Eve. So that left and then they went to their in-laws for Christmas Day. So that left my mom and my husband and I, and the kids are still at home, kind of like, okay, what are we going to do? We don't want to make a big, huge meal for Christmas Day. And we said, well, what do you want? And all they wanted was a side. So we just made the different sides that everybody really liked. We didn't do the ham, we didn't do the turkey. We just had side dishes, and it was really fun, and lots of different desserts. So you can just start, circumstances sometimes just throw you down the path of doing things differently.
Yeah, I couldn't bring myself to do the whole turkey for Thanksgiving with it just Matt and I. But growing up, our Christmas Eve dinner was country ham and red eye gravy and the biscuits.
Oh,
That's Southern right there.
That
and
is Southern.
So that's what we made for Thanksgiving. And my Pittsburgher husband loves
There you
it.
go. Yeah,
So lucky.
Sure.
And so that's what we made for our Thanksgiving. So we had tradition, but we weren't trying to fit our lonely little circle into this big square.
Exactly.
Well, I've got a question for everybody, and this it kind of relates to the times we're living in now. Maybe how many of us? I mean, Laura, you talked about living in Germany, and Dan, you talked about living away from your family out west. I'm from a military family. We didn't move around a whole lot, but we lived in Oklahoma for 7 years. All my family's from Ohio. And Bernice, maybe you lived in Cheri too. I remember as a child getting packages in the mail from my grandparents, and it had tins of different kinds of cookies that she made, or breads, or like pumpkin breads, or different things like that. Do you all ever remember that as a kid, that your grandparents or aunts and uncles or someone
would send
you? It's not like a care package, but just like a Christmas package.
Sure.
Maybe it came with your gifts or something, but there was those little things, and I remember those, and I remember all those kinds of things from my grandparents.
Dan, you raised your hand, yeah?
Yeah. So I was lucky enough that both of my grandmothers, because both my grandfathers had passed before I was born, but they would both spend Christmas with us. So my mom's mom lived upstairs in a small apartment above the funeral home that we lived in. And then my dad's mom would come down from Traverse City. So if you're not familiar in Michigan, Traverse City's up here, and then I lived down here. And so she'd come down, and she and her sister-in-law would drive down, and then Aunt Ina would continue to go down to her family that lived a little bit further south than us, but they would drop grandma off and she would come in with one small bag of clothes and about 5 bags of cookies, cakes, treats that she had made, that she had started making shortly after Halloween, and would just make these things, and and it was almost too much. I mean, we could see the exit for too much, but we never got there. And it was, it was a lot, because it was just the 4 of us, and then my 2 grandmothers. So there was just the 6 of us, and that was just a lot of stuff. And then my mom's mom was from Eastern Europe, from Hungary. And so she had a whole host of, unique Christmas traditions that were sort of unique to what we experience here in America, and so it's been fun for our family to go back, and because when my grandma came here, there was a lot of pressure put on immigrants to sort of Americanize your holidays and to kind of fall in line, because she came between the world wars, and so there was some pressure there's a lot of sort of anti-immigrant sentiment at the time, and they
Mm-hmm.
came here as refugees, and so there was a lot of pressure put on their family to
Sure.
kind of conform to American cultural norms, and so they dropped a lot of those traditions. And so we've gone back and have tried different recipes, and I've had some recipes shot down, like pork jelly, which is made from hooves and snouts of pigs, and then you
Yeah.
shred the meat, and then you put in some carrots. And,
We don't need the recipe. You're just
We don't want that
wasting your
one.
breath at this
Description.
point.
I'll put that in there instead of the Christmas cake, right? And then everybody can try it. And it's basically, it's like gelatinous pork. You just like, it's like the consistency of Jello, but the flavor of pork with vegetables in it.
Thanks
And
for
it's-
sharing that. Now none
Yeah,
of us
and
are
it's-
hungry anymore.
I know, it's helping the diet a lot.
Exactly.
Anytime you feel like eating, just think of that. Just this
No.
really
Except for the vegetables, that
Roomful.
sounds just like something that we have here in the South called souse meat. If you know what souse meat is, but they don't have vegetables in it. But it's the snouts and the whatever else, yeah, and gelatinous stuff, yeah.
Ew.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm going to go to a sweeter. I'm going to go a different direction. No.
Well, I'm encourage everybody to write your
Yeah.
recipes down, though, because I
Yeah,
have
exactly.
family members that, because I have my grandmother's recipe boxes.
Mhm.
And
I've got
so-
mine
'cause
in my.
she lived with us
yeah.
since I was 3. She died just
Yeah.
a couple of months after my husband and I married. And so I have her recipe, and I get asked by them all the time, "Hey, do you have her recipe for this?" And I had look and I go, "No, we don't," because it was in her head.
It was in her
You
head.
know,
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I encourage you guys to write down your recipes and pass them down to your children, because you know one
Exactly.
day you're not going to be here, and if you're just cooking out of your head,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be gone.
It's going to be gone.
You know, I went to a bridal shower once, and they asked all of us to, instead of a card, just to put a recipe on the
Mhm.
outside of the box.
Yes.
And I thought that was so
Yes.
lovely, that from my house to your house,
Yeah,
here's
exactly.
a tradition.
Right. I went to one once where they did that, but they asked you to make the recipe and then they put it in the freezer so that then after, the honeymoon, they came
Yeah.
home, they had all this food, plus the recipe.
That's even better.
Yeah, I
So,
like
yeah,
that.
if it could be frozen, if not, then they would just get them the ingredients to put in their pantry, because some things you just really can't freeze. But
Right. Like
But,
a
yeah.
tossed salad,
or something like that. But
which we all need a recipe for.
exactly. But we have all lived in different. Oh, sorry, Bernice, you were going to say something.
Say, in addition to writing it down, record the person.
Oh yes,
Because right now we can do that very easily with
yes,
our phones.
sure,
Just record everything that they're doing.
right.
That is
Especially
such
those, especially those people that say, "I don't know. I just so Kate, we're going to cook
Yes.
it. We're going to make it. Now you tell me what you're doing."
I love that. I wish
Yeah.
we had that. My grandmother, my mother's mother, the thing about her cooking was, and me too, is the kitchen was covered in flour. And she was laughing. She was having a
Oh.
good time, but it was messy and it was imperfect. And you throw some of
Mhm.
this in, and it was on the old wood,
Oh, yeah.
the actual wood stove.
Yeah.
And wouldn't that be cool? I mean, I have all these very distinct memories, but wouldn't it be cool to have actual video to pass on to
Wouldn't that be
somebody?
great? Wouldn't that be great? My great grandmother, my mom's always talking about her dad's mom making biscuits on the old wood stove, and they happened to have one of those stoves that she used in a storage shed in the backyard of this farm. And my mom's for years has said, "I want a butter churn," because she would go as a kid and she would churn the butter, and I want that stove. But it's like, where would we put it? What would we do with it? But just those memories of seeing that stove reminds her of her grandmother making those biscuits. And she said, she would just throw the flour in. She would throw everything in and mix it up and make the best biscuits you've ever tasted in your
Yeah.
life.
So did she do drop, or did she cut them out?
I think she just did drop. I don't.
Okay.
That's what
My
I'm
grandmother
thinking.
would, she would,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there would be hardly any waste.
Oh no. Yeah. They
yeah,
didn't waste anything in those
They
days.
they
Yeah.
get those things all right
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. So anyway, there's so many, and we go to different places. You were talking about, visiting different places and bringing those traditions home. For my married kids that have a lot of kids, it can get really expensive to do Christmas for them. So I started when the first two started having children. I just do a 12 days of Christmas for them. And so they have something for 12 days to open up. And it's cheaper than buying Christmas presents for, but they have loved it. But I always, every year, because I lived in England for 4 years, put Christmas crackers, those crackers that you pop. So not the ones you eat, but the crackers that you pop.
Yeah.
And I always, one day's always some kind of Christmas English candy is what I put in there too. And they know that's why I'm doing it, is because I spent that time in England. So that has become a tradition for them to see what I put in this year from, different places that I've lived. So
you do 12 days of Christmas for each family?
Each one's, yes. Each of them, I've got 4 that are married. So
okay, so not for each child.
No. Nope. That's why I do the 12 days of Christmas, because it's cheaper. But anyway, it's just become this thing that if I don't do it, they will get really upset because they're used to that for 12 days, having something.
And grandma shouldn't be a slacker.
Exactly. And I mean, had kids say, if anything happens and you can't do it one year, I will help you do it, because my kids would get really upset. But I do put traditional things in there, and I tell them why I'm for each thing, they know why I'm sticking it in there. And there's a lot of food items sometimes, and things that I've learned about that I've been given to eat at conferences from different countries. I like to share that with them as well too. So we can get traditions from friends as well that live in different places, and start adding that to our holidays and share those types of things too. And that helps our families learn about the world as well, and kind of, kind of get out of there.
That reminds me of another tradition growing up for me. Y'all, some of you lived overseas. My dad was stationed in Germany for about 3 years, and I think it's called an Advent calendar.
Yes.
Where it has the windows behind it, and there's pieces of chocolate behind each window.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I had one of those every single year.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
I think is that a German thing or an England thing?
I think it originated. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, and the Europeans and Germans in particular, the Advent candles were not just for church. Everybody has them in their house.
Yeah.
And they're all colored. I mean, I have an Advent log in there. I have an Advent, more traditional one on my table, but I have a log. And I've carved out 4-inch little circles, and I have different candles that I put in front of my fireplace. Just to counting down
just talking to you guys, it brings up more memories.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's why you should talk about them, because memories do beget memories.
Exactly. Yes, Dan.
Can I share something real quick?
Sure.
So one tradition in my wife's family was that when they would get their Christmas roast, they would have like a big roast. And they would always cut the small end off, which everybody knows is the most flavorful and delicious end. And then they would throw it away, and then they'd put the big end in. And so when this was pointed out to them, I'd ask my wife, well, why in the world would you do that? And so she's like, I don't know. So she called her mom. Mom, why in the world would we do that? She's like, I don't know. So she called her mom. And she's like, well, it's because when we was growing up in Alabama, the pan was only this big, and we had so many people to feed. We put the biggest part of the roast in the pan, and we just threw out the little thing, And so, but that questioning of why we have these traditions can lead to pulling out the story that, her very story reclusive Southern grandmother, shall we say, that doesn't like to share stories, got that story out. And so now we joke around about that. Well, the right thing to do is buy a bigger pan. Like,
exactly.
Right? Like, that's the tastiest part. Don't throw that out.
Exactly. Well, I would like to encourage everybody to take some time this holiday season, whatever you celebrate, and however you get together, whether it's Zoom or you can get together with family and talk about the different traditions and the different foods, and maybe share. When you have a Zoom call, you can share your screen, throw up some pictures of people eating. Do you have a picture of people sitting around the dining room table? What's on that table? Who was there? What memories does that bring up? And then find some way to record that, write it down, or record your Zoom call so that and let everybody know you're recording it, because you don't want to get yourself in trouble. But I don't want somebody to say something really bad or come walking through with no clothes on or something. You've heard about these things happening on Zoom. Let them know that you're recording. But that would be a fabulous way to get these traditions and get people talking about traditions and bringing up memories and things that maybe you kind of remembered a little bit, but they remember a different way. I think that's really interesting when we can all talk about what we think happened and find out that your brother thought it happened a different way, or your uncle said, no, wait a minute, I remember it this way, but it was all the same event. And so all of that needs to be part of your story and can add to those family members and bring your family closer together. So let us know. We would love to hear from you, and let us know what stories, recipes, traditions that you learned about that you didn't necessarily maybe know about before you watched this episode of GenFriends and got our challenge to talk to your family over this holiday season and find out all these different things, learn about the recipes, learn about why they use the small pan, learn about why or maybe how that particular dish came into your family to use, as a tradition. Why do we have this every year? Is there a reason? You just never know what you might learn. So with that, we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.